Basic Instinct, starring Michael Douglas and Sharon Stone, was a highly successful 1992 erotic thriller that was high budgeted, and it paved the way for a lot more high budgeted erotic thrillers to be produced and pushed out there with hopes of making a lot of money. And the one we're going to talk about today was written by the same writer, Joe Estevez, and the movie, of course, is Jade. And this is a new 4K UHD release from Vinegar Syndrome in a very impressive slip box, and we're going to take a look at the contents within this thing here within this video. I'm also going to talk about that 4K transfer. And if you would, go ahead and hit that like button. I'm Dave Watkins, Watkins Films. Now, recently I did another review on a different Vinegar Syndrome erotic thriller called Sliver. You can take a look at that video later. It's a pretty good one. I thought it was a pretty good review. As far as what I thought about this film, you have to check that out to see what it was. But Vinegar Syndrome has... Sliver was a 1993 one, so it was kind of in between Basic Instinct and Jade. Both of them are kind of reactions to Basic Instinct. Jade stars David Caruso. David Caruso was the main character on the show NYPD Blue for the first season, and a few episodes into the second season, but he did leave the show, and he did that to start a film career. He wanted to kind of become a movie star, and unfortunately for him, it didn't quite work out the way he had hoped. He eventually went back and started on another crime series of like a while later, CSI Miami, I believe. But here he tried this. He did Jade, and then he did Kiss of Death, and then he did some others, but none of them really did all that good, unfortunately. And it's a shame because he's a good actor. So as far as the plot, David Caruso again plays a cop in this, and he becomes involved in a murder case that ends up dealing with like politicians or very wealthy businessmen who are having sex with these prostitutes, and it seems like maybe one of the prostitutes may have murdered this guy, and so they're trying to figure all that out, and it becomes kind of it is a very much a crime thriller and a detective story as he's trying to figure out exactly who murdered this guy, but it does get into the erotic thriller stuff as well. And as he digs deeper into it, he starts to hear about this mysterious call girl named Jade, and he even finds a little case with I guess a Chinese symbol on it that he finds out that says Jade on it. And apparently the guy who was murdered has been collecting pubic hairs of all the prostitutes or whatever that he's been having sex with, and he collects them, and one of them's Jade, and then he searches Jade is kind of his prime suspect, and he's trying to figure out who Jade is. So also starring in this film is Linda Fiorentino, who was a pretty hot commodity at this time. She's also pretty hot, but at the time she was in Men in Black, and after that she did Dogma. She was the main character in Dogma, and I think she's retired now, but she did do, after that she kind of got typecast in erotic thrillers and stuff like that, but she does a very good job in this film. I do like the way that she handles this character. Now, in this film, she plays the character Anna Maxwell, who's the wife of Chaz Palminteri's character, who is a best friend of David Caruso's character. Now, Chaz Palminteri plays a character named Matt Gavin, who is a defense attorney, and he's got a pretty good bit of screen time here. He's third billed in it. I'm not going to dip too deep into everything that happens, but it also... There's a team of police officers. One of the lead ones that works with David Caruso's character is played by Michael Biehn, and Richard Crenna plays the governor, who becomes involved with the plot that he was sleeping with one of the call girls, and there's pictures of him that he was being blackmailed and stuff. So, and it all gets somewhat political, and it is kind of a slow moving detective story, and there are some pretty good twists and turns within the film. I didn't remember who the killer was, but you're definitely not gonna quite. I think it is somewhat surprising, but it's not that surprising. There's actually a fairly deep conspiracy thing going on here that it's. I think that it kind of works, but it's also very convoluted, and it is a lot to it. Now, as far as the sex and the nudity, it is in there, but it's not as graphic as you might think that it might be. A lot of it's done with camera point of views or wide shots. Linda Fiorentino does become completely nude a few times, but like I say, it's not like very. I guess it is somewhat graphic, but since the way the shots are handled, it's like you don't see all that much, even though you're seeing it, but you're not seeing it. If that makes any sense. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at this slip box. It's pretty cool. It's fairly subtle, I think. A lot of white negative space. There's David Caruso's face on the back of it. Has a booklet in here. And it also has, here's the movie itself with a slip cover, which, again, it's more kind of like the same on the slip box. Now, I do like this original cover. This is a lot more provocative to me. I do like the way that this looks, and this is a kind of random scene that happens in the film, but I guess it's, I guess some of it's not as random as you would think, but this is it's kind of a sex scene where the Jade character is sitting on this guy's face. It happens in there, but she keeps her clothes on, so it's not quite as intense as it sounds like it's going to be. We have 2 discs. We have a 4K and a Blu-ray disc. And then here's the reverse cover with the new cover art. Now here's a booklet, and it does have some essays, and it has some writing. It has some pictures as well from the film. One thing I found very interesting, there's a shot of David Caruso and Linda Fiorentino. One thing I found very interesting about what happened was that William Friedkin, who directed it, who also directed films like Sorcerer and The Exorcist, but he pretty much rewrote most of the script, so much so that Joe Estevez tried to get his name removed, but ended up having to settle with him. He gave him some more money, and he was cool with it after that. But apparently William Friedkin changed a lot of the script. So there's some good information, and this book does add value to this set. And there's the old cover, which I think that's the way to go. That's the good one right there. As far as the transfer itself, like I said, there's a Blu-ray and a 4K disc. They both seem to have the same transfer. The 4K disc does have HDR, so the grading's a little different. It's a little deeper on the blacks. The flesh tones, or the skin tones look more realistic, and they look a little deeper as far as the colors in them. There are 2 cuts of the film here. There's a theatrical cut and the director's cut. Now, when you pop this disc in, it pops up where the theatrical cut is the one first, and then the director's cut's after that. I don't know. I watched the director's cut, and then I kind of looked through the theatrical cut to kind of see what the differences were. There's about 12-minute difference between the 2 cuts. The ending's a little different. The ending involves the main character more. The very last couple of scenes, where in the director's cut it doesn't. So it's kind of, I don't know, but they're both kind of weird on the end. I'm going to say that, but it's kind of a cool reveal. Now once you decide which one of the 2 versions you're going to watch and you hit play, a little blurb comes up with a bunch of writing saying all this stuff. Like, for instance, if you go to the director's cut, it says we had to restore this version and we had to do all this work. We had to go back to the 35mm camera negative. We got this inner positive, and some of the shots, like I think they said 2 of the shots I had to take from an SD version, because the original director's cut was made for television, so that would have had these sidebars here, so they had to kind of just punch in on it a little bit. And they warn you beforehand, when you get to that scene, it's going to be a little different. There's 2 shots. They say there's 2 shots in there that are going to look like that, and it happens. And I noticed it, but it wasn't like, I may not have noticed it too good if I had not had that warning, but they put that warning there because they didn't want people to freak out and then want a new copy of it. They wanted to fix that. But on the version of when you go to play the theatrical version, it does say that the timing is different than the original theatrical release. They say that the timing is the way that the director, William Friedkin, would have wanted it, or the way he did want it. Apparently, I don't know what the timing was like. I have never seen it, because they said they did the timing right for the VHS releases. Now, I don't know what was going on with the original color timing, but I'm thinking it was probably something crazy. Like, they probably changed the skin tones, did some crazy grading and stuff like that to make it look more noirish for that time period. Maybe, but I don't know. I can't remember it. I didn't see it in the theater, so I probably saw this one. Now, as far as the way that it looks, I think it looks really good. It was shot on film, so it looks very filmic. I think the grain structure looks very, very nice. It looks very organic. When you see close-ups of people, you see a lot of details. You see a lot of sharpness for the most part. Not overly sharp, but it is nicely blended, and it doesn't. It looks good even on the Blu-ray, which has pretty much the same transfer, just not as much detail. They both look very, very nice. Now, there is a sequence near the end of this that is color graded, like it is kind of the the kind of the climax of the film. It all takes place inside of this house at night, and it's dark blue, and that to me is the only sequence that really has like a crazy color timing or color grading over it that's really blue. It's like blue as shit, but it still works for that part of the film. But most of the film, there is a very long chase scene in this film. Now, William Friedkin, who directed this, he also directed The French Connection, and they has a car chase scene in that. But there is a very long, a 6 or 7 minute car chase where it goes through the street. Now, this takes place in San Francisco, and that's where that car chase takes place. If you've ever been to San Francisco, which I went there a long time ago, it is really hilly, and there's a lot of, it makes for a very interesting car chase because the cars are going over these hills, and there's like boom, boom, and all this, and then they go through this parade, and it's a pretty good car chase sequence. So that's a cool part of the film. Just in general, I think this is a strong 4K transfer. I think they did a good job on it. It looks very much like it did back in the day. As far as the special features here and the transfer, I do want to read this. It says, Jade is presented in Dolby Vision, HDR, and newly restored from its 35mm original camera negative with the following sound options. And it gives you several sound options, which is a good thing. It has a commentary track with Jennifer Moorman, and that's on the 4K. On the Blu-ray disc, it does have a lot more special features. It has all of that without the quality of the 4K, but it also has several other special features, including archive interviews with, it says an interview with screenwriter Joe Estervaz, and then one with William Friedkin, and then there's a featurette with the editor and Augie Hess and an assistant editor, and there's another interview with William Friedkin and an interview with television personality Charlie Rose. So it does have, mostly looks like an archived interview stuff on there, but it does have a lot of additional content on the Blu-ray disc, not on the 4K disc. Now, before I rate this movie, I do want to say that this film bombed spectacularly at the box office. With a $50 million budget, it made about $9.9 million. I hope it made some back on VHS sales and cable stuff, because it's bad that it blew up that bad. Let's go ahead and rate the movie. I'm going to rate this on a scale from 1 to 5, 1 being the lowest and 5 being the highest. I'm going to give Jade a 3.5 star rating. Now, I do think there is something below the surface here, and there's some scenes in this film that kind of stand out as like, why am I seeing this? But I think those scenes are important to the film, and I think that just the voyeurism of seeing the police watching these sex scenes take place, and occasionally you'll see a sex scene, but there's not as much. It wasn't as hardcore as what people were thinking they're going to get. And the protagonist, David Caruso's character, David, he doesn't really get his erotic scenes like Michael Douglas got in Basic Instinct. So you kind of were thinking that would happen. And it almost does happen at one point, but denied. Anyway, let's go ahead and rate Vinegar Syndrome. I'm going to give them a 4-star rating for their presentation. Their 4K transfer, very strong. I do like their slipbox packaging. Very well done for this film. And let me know what you think about this movie. If you think this is a 90s hidden gem waiting to be rediscovered, it's a possibility. But if you haven't done so already, if you would subscribe to my channel, and also you see this box right here, if you click on that, it's going to bring you directly to that time that I did a review of Sliver starring Sharon Stone. So if you hit that box, that's what you're going to see. I'm Dave Watkins, Watkins Films. Thanks for watching.